Eventually, all the colonists came out of the ships, moved on, left them behind. Left to themselves, the ships would eventually have oxidized, rotted, weathered away. But the humans who came to this place had eyes for the future. Someday our descendants may want these ships, they said. So they enclosed the landing place in a stasis field. No wind-driven dust, no rain or condensation, no direct sunlight or ultraviolet radiation would strike the ships. Oxygen, the most corrosive of all poisons, was removed from the atmosphere inside the dome. The master computer of the planet Harmony, called the Oversoul by the descendants of those first colonists, kept all humans far away from the large island where the ships were harbored. Within that protective bubble, the starships waited for 40 million years. Now, though, the bubble was gone. The air here was breathable. The landing field once again rang with the voices of human beings, and not just the somber adults who had first walked this ground. Many of those scurrying back and forth from one ship or building to another were children. They were all hard at work, taking functional parts from the other ships to transform one of them into an operational starship. And when the ship they called Basilica was ready, all parts working, fully stocked and loaded, they would climb inside for the last time and leave this world where more than 1 million generations of their ancestors had lived, in order to return to Earth, the planet where human civilization had first appeared, but had lasted for fewer than 10,000 years. What is Earth to us, Hushith wondered, as she watched the children and adults at work. Why are we going to such lengths to return there when Harmony is our home? Whatever ties once bound us there surely rusted away in all these intervening years. Yet they would go, because the Oversoul had chosen them to go, had bent and manipulated all their lives to bring them to this place at this time. Often Hushith was glad of the attention the Oversoul had paid to them, but at other times she resented the fact that they had not been left to work out the course of their own lives. But if we have no ties to Earth, we have scarcely more to Harmony, thought Hushith. And she alone of the people here could see that this observation was literally, not just figuratively, true. All the people here were chosen because they had particular sensitivity to the mental communications of the Oversoul. In Hushith, this sensitivity took an odd form. She could look at people and sense immediately the strength of the relationships binding them to all the other people in their lives. It came to her as a waking vision. She could see the relationships like cords of light tying one person to the others in her life. For instance, her younger sister Luette, the only blood relative Hushith had known through all her growing-up years. As Hushith rested in the shade, Luette came by, her daughter Shvea right behind her, carrying lunch into the starship for those who were working on the computers. All her life, Hushith had seen her own connection to Lutya as the one great certainty. They grew up not knowing who their parents were, as virtual charity cases in Razia's great teaching house in the city of Basilica. All fears, all slights, all uncertainties were bearable, though, because there was Lutya, bound to her by cords that were no weaker for being invisible to everyone but Hushith. There were other ties, too, of course. Hushith well remembered how painful it had been to watch the bond develop between Luette and her husband, Nafai, a troublesome young boy who had more enthusiasm than sense sometimes. To her surprise, however, Lutya's new bond to her husband did not weaken her tie to Hushith, and when Hushith, in turn, married Nafai's full brother Isyeb, the tie between her and Luette grew even stronger than it had been in childhood, something Hushith had never thought possible. So now, watching Luette and Shvea pass by, Hushith saw them not just as a mother and daughter, but as two beings of light, bound to each other by a thick and shimmering cord. There was no stronger bond than this. Shvea loved her father, Nafai, too, but the tie between children and their fathers was always more tentative. It was